everybody. Welcome back to the Matthew Trainer podcast. So, I recorded this episode right after the last one. And so, if you noticed in that episode, I had on this pin, and this pin is from Normandy in France. And so, over the summer, I was in Normandy in France. And in Normandy in France, it's one of the very historical sites, especially of World War II. And so the Normandy is it's actually a large region of France. So I think it's more comparable to states in the United States. So there's different regions in France, and Normandy is one of them. It is one of the northernmost regions in France, and it is in Normandy, in the region of Normandy, that five landings at five different beaches occurred by the Allies. And so two were done by the Americans, two were done by the British, and one were done by the Canadians. And so the poppy is actually, I believe, a British symbol, although I think it is also used by the Americans. It is a symbol of, it was actually from World War One. And so there's this really wonderful poem, and when I was in school, in fifth grade, in choir, we actually sang this, and it is a British war poem, and it was written after World War One, and it goes like this: In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the lark still bravely singing a fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead short days ago, we lived, felt on, saw a sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you and from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders fields. And so it is a hymn, reminiscent, I believe this is of a British war cemetery. And I was in one of the British war cemeteries. We were at a hotel in Normandy, and our hotel was not too far. It was within walking distance of the British War Cemetery, so we were able to walk after dinner from our hotel to the British War Cemetery in Bayeux, Normandy. And it's a wonderful cemetery. There's two sites. There's a cemetery, and then there's a memorial across the way, and it is a incredible site in Normandy. There's this huge cross. I believe it's in the center, and then there's this, I want to say stone. It almost looks like an altar in the middle, and so there's rows and rows of crosses in the cemetery, and we were also able to see the American War Cemetery in Normandy as well, and it's a huge cemetery, and there's many crosses there, and there's a chapel in there as well. It's this really small chapel that is there. It's circular shaped, and it's really small. There's like two rows of pews in there. So, what does Veterans Day remind us of? What is it supposed to recall, to reminisce? And of course, first of all, it's veterans. Without a doubt, Veterans Day is about veterans. That's simply in the name, Veterans Day. In Britain, it is always commemorated on a Sunday around November 11th, and in the United States, it is always remembered on the 11th, and it is to remind us of the end of the First World War on 11/11 at 11/11. And so Veterans Day, which always in the US is on the 11th, um, is a call to mind of veterans, and it is across the world a call to mind of veterans, and it was called after the First World War. However, following the Second World War and subsequent wars in the United States history, it is to recall all veterans who have fought in all wars, especially those living. And unfortunately, for many living soldiers, they question the sacrifice that they made. Recently, in both Britain, and has been said before in the United States and also Britain as well, many of these soldiers regret the sacrifices that they made and they question the sacrifices that many of their brothers made for a country for countries that have simply just fallen, that haven't been the same. And I think that's kind of reminiscent of the last line of the poem. To you from failing hands we throw, the torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. And I think that that is something very important. That's exactly what we see. These soldiers almost regret the sacrifice they've made. There was one man on British TV who was just off crying because he was fought in World War II and questions the sacrifice that many of the men alongside him made. And the sacrifices that many of these men made were not merely just physical, were not merely the greatest sacrifice that anyone can give of their lives, but also a sacrifice of mental and physical proportions. Many lost arms, lost legs, and we see this too, especially in modern warfare. So, especially, it's not just a time to recall the sacrifice that these men made, but to also remember the sacrifice that they made in preserving our freedom, protecting our rights that ultimately they made, and the sacrifice that many of them made, ultimately giving their lives, and still those who are alive who did make it out. Additionally, it is a time to call and pray for peace, to remember the sacrifice that they made, and pray that nobody will have to make such a sacrifice again. That they have fought for freedom, for peace, and that no one will have to fight for it again, that they were the ones who did it, and they are heroic for this, that this is not just a constant thing we have to do to fight for. So we pray for peace, and we pray that no one, no man, no woman, no child, will ever have to see the horrors of war. And so and I'm sure that many of the men who fought will pray that their children and their children's children and so on and so forth don't have to see what they went through, that they fought for a better world for their children, and that their children wouldn't have to see a world like this. So we pray for peace, a world that may not be divided, a world that may not see harm brought upon one brother to another. That's what we pray. And so Veterans Day is not only a reminder of the sacrifice that these men made to defend our nations, to defend our freedom and peace. We also recall how we pray that we never have to see conflicts like these again, that none may arise ever within our lifetimes. And so I think that those are two things we must remember on Veterans Day, and also to pray for former and current veterans, and those who've lived, and those who have died. God bless you all. God bless. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Doing so helps us to spread this Catholic and Christian message to all. Please also consider supporting this channel on Patreon.